Welcome. This is Lou Katzos. I'm the president of EMCA, the East Mediterranean Business Culture Alliance. Today we have a special event, a Zoom event. Typically our events at EMCA, the East Mediterranean Business Culture Alliance, are live. We typically do them at the Press Club or at the Russian Tea Room. But because of COVID, we had to make certain allowances for what's taking place right now. Our events are typically from September to May. We usually end up in May with a Harlem Hellenic blues concert. But we've decided to go Zoom. So if there's any faults, blame us in terms of our reception and all the rest of that. And I say to my panelists, who I'll introduce in a second, if my internet connection goes out, because I'm on an island right now on the east end of Long Island, if it goes out, you guys take over. This event, we've named it relating to the Hellenic Genealogy Tourism. It's our first event relating to the 200th anniversary of the Hellenic Revolution. EMCA, along with other organizations like AHEPA, and the Hellenic American National Council, have formed the American Hellenic Revolution of 1821 Bicentennial Commission. And this is one of the first events relating to our bicentennial activities. Our commission and committee are made up of various individuals. They include Congresswoman Maloney and Congressman Gus Bilirakis, who are the co-chairs of the Congressional Hellenic Caucus. They include Rhode Island State Senator Lou Raptakis and various other scholars and people in the media, including Paul Katrotsios, Alex Bolinas, Professor Alexiou, and Dr. Stavranidis, among many other people. So let me introduce our panelists. So we don't have all of them here right this moment, but we decided to start regardless at 2 o'clock. Today we will have a panelist. Hopefully he will be able to get on, and that's Harry Theocharis, who is the Minister of Tourism. He is a Hellenic politician, member of the Hellenic Parliament, and the former head of the Department of Revenue during the Hellenic debt crisis. We have a good friend, and he's also a member of AHEPA. We have good friend Georgia Stryker-Kelman, who is the founder and president of Hellenic Genealogy Geek. Many of you know her blog, and also many of you are members of her Facebook page, Hellenic Genealogy Geek, which currently has 26,000 members and continually rising. We also have with us Gregory Kontos, who's founded Greek Ancestry this particular year. Both he and Georgia are experts in Hellenic genealogy. And Gregory, again, we're united with Gregory and Georgia because together we did do the first national, that I hosted, the first national Hellenic American Genealogy Conference 5 years ago. Gregory is an expert in Greek migration history, and he, along with Georgia, as I indicated, are leaders in the Hellenic genealogy research area. We have with us another fellow AHEPan, Peter Vlitas, who's, Peter, are you in New York right now, I guess, right?
Yes, in New York, yeah.
Okay, Peter is the Senior Vice President of Airline Relations for Travel Leaders Group. As a member of its leadership team, he provides expertise to provide benefits to all business divisions within Travel Leaders Group. It is an organization with more than 52,000 travel advisors, and he serves, in the committee and handles, I think, I guess 6,000 at this point, company-owned, franchised, and affiliate travel agencies around the world. Stathi Kafalidis is the Director General of Rodopi Development, Project Manager. Ryan for Social, dealing in Greece, Thraki, and Bulgaria, and is the current governor of HEPA Elas, along with myself, who's a governor in the New York area. Today's event, today's HEPA EMCA Hellenic Genealogy event is also associated, obviously, in particular with the Hellenic Cultural Commission that I'm the chairman of. Thank you. I introduced you, Minister Theocharis. Welcome on board. I'm not sure if you heard some of the introductions. You did. Okay, great. So we are all in different locations, obviously. I'm in Shelter Island in the eastern end of Long Island. You are, I assume, in Athens. Georgia is in Chicago. Gregory is in Patra. Stathi, where are you right now?
Komotini, Thrace. Komotini, Greece.
So Stathi is in Komotini, and Peter is in New York City. Again, I emphasize that if for whatever reason my internet connection drops out, you guys take over. So let's start actually the discussion, the panel discussion. And again, whoever wants to jump in, please jump in. Hellenic Genealogy Tourism, sometimes called Roots Tourism, is a prominent, or actually a niche or segment in the tourist industry. And it consists of many tourists going back to their homeland to find their roots. In this particular year coming up in 2021 is obviously the 200th anniversary of the Hellenic Revolution. And I assume many people will want to go back to Greece, in particular relating to the anniversary, but also the fact that due to the COVID situation that we have right now, there are obviously issues with many of us going back to Greece. So, Minister, if you can, tell us a little bit about what's happening in the tourist end in Greece, and also tell us about what you anticipate will be happening in 2021.
Yes, well, thank you, Luis, for this great invitation. Of course, this is a very, very different and difficult year, as we can all imagine, and we've all lived through that, because give or take, of course, the pandemic has affected everybody's lives in a similar fashion. Of course, in Greece, we have been more successful than most of the countries in the world, certainly in Europe, in dealing with this crisis. And we pride ourselves in the fact that we are so successful, so effective in managing to cope with this crisis. And now it feels like we have proven that this is actually the result of a systematic dealing with this. This is not a fluke. This is not something that just came about in the beginning of the crisis and it has evaporated since. We were successful in the early stages. We were successful in the middle of the stage where we opened up gradually the internal rules and the internal controls, reopening schools, reopening restaurants, etc., etc. And now we are successful in controlling the situation when our borders are open. Now, in order to do this, we've had to take very difficult decisions early on, and we still take difficult decisions. Already from Tuesday, for example, we're changing the rules for Romanian and Bulgarian visitors that were able to come without a test if they flew into Greece. Now this changes and matches what happens when they drive to Promachon, the northern border. So we are continuing monitoring the situation, continuing changing the rules, depending on how the health situation is at any stage. We have a number of defenses, if you like. It's funny to use military terminology, but effectively this is a war that we're all waging against this enemy that we cannot see. So our defenses are the fact that we limit the number of countries that we open our borders with. The second area of defense is our state-of-the-art AI system, where we actually target our testing in the borders to ensure that we focus on the areas with the highest risk. And this is actually with the cooperation of Greek scientists from Harvard and other American universities, and not just Greek scientists, others as well. And finally, we have our hygienic protocols, which are very much the method of ensuring that people, even if they're positive, do not spread in an easy fashion the disease in Greece.
I assume by next year, hopefully, let's pray. Hopefully by next year, this will all be behind us, and the tourist season is going to open up with a huge strength. Has the ministry started to get itself involved in the upcoming 200th anniversary? And are there special things that you're doing in the ministry relating to what should be a banner year in terms of tourism?
Well, we are currently, the focus for this year has been how to restart the tourism industry, which came to a standstill. And we managed to do that. Now the next stage is how to keep control and ensure that we don't lose control like Spain did. Recently, the UK reinstituted quarantine rules for people returning to Spain. So we don't want to see that. And as soon as we are over this stage, we will then plan the end of the season and mainly the next year, because we all know that this year is not going to be a successful year in terms of the economic terms. But we will aim to ensure that we have a good year. So we are in constant discussions and cooperation with the committee for the 200 years, and we will, of course, play a role and ensure that we have adequate events for especially the diaspora, which is a very important pillar of the strategy, because short-term long-haul trips are going to be very, very difficult for this year and for next year. And mainly the Greek diaspora is where we aim to overcome this difficulty.
Are there any branding things that are taking place with regards to the 200th anniversary coming next year? Is there any branding, advertising, and in the ministry? Are you planning that?
Well, what we're doing now is completing the campaign that we have for this and next year, which is a purely touristic campaign. It has two pillars. In cooperation with Marketing Greece, we created the Endless Greek Summer campaign, and GNTO EOT created also a Health First campaign for Greece. So we're implementing those campaigns currently, and we have left the kind of branding that the 200 years to them, but we will come and join their forces and ensure that next year the 200 years campaign will be supported by us as well.
Thank you, Minister. Peter Vlitas, let me ask you a couple of questions relating to tourism. Obviously, this is, and by the way, I love your background. It's very nice. Obviously, this year, to a certain degree, is shot. What are your thoughts about next year's tourist season, in particular, as it relates to Greece?
Well, Greece, the way we see it is, Greece will probably be the #1 sought-after destination, if not in the world, from most markets, and I'll tell you why. For the first time ever, we will have, starting April, 7 non-stops from the United States to Athens. We have not had that since the time of, what was that, Tower Air? Remember those guys? I want to say, the minister is a pretty modest guy for a politician. I talk to the minister, what's up, all the time. I don't think the people of Greece have fully understood what he has done to get Greece to where we are today in tourism. Even in this crisis, right? Even in this crisis, Greece was the first country, and the minister was the first person who actually had a plan to go to the European Union on how to open up tourism, right? Greece has opened up their tourism now, what, July 1, 26 days for the most part, and has made immediate adjustments where they felt it was necessary to make the adjustments, right? Other countries have not done that, and we have seen what has happened in Spain. Moving the clock forward, because of the success of the Greek government and the actions they took for this pandemic, even if you take what they're saying that in the end of December, early January, there will be some cure / treatment / vaccine, that's going to take a while, right? However, our advances, what we look as, what are people hitting on the internet to see where they're going to go? Because there's tons of pent-up demand. American Airlines this year is adding a flight from Kennedy, which they haven't even, they haven't done that. That's the old TWA route, right? So we are now preparing in association with our partners. We have a large operation in Greece, Kybernetes Travel, our partners. We're establishing a number of programs directly for the 200th anniversary. We're well informed with the minister who keeps us up to date on what may or may not happen, what things will or won't happen, how they're going. We're informed from the European Union on what is happening. And it is our goal that we're not going to cater to the homogeneous. That's not our bread and butter, right? We have our agents throughout the entire United States and globally. And what we want to marry is the rich history of 200 years, right? So if you look at it, most people don't know that the Ionian Islands were a gift to Greece when King George, I believe it was King George, someone correct me if I'm wrong, when they brought it back.
1864.
Right, so
1864.
left. So, things like Bubulina on the island and her house, which is still there. So
Spetses.
That's correct, in Spetses. So you're looking at like a birthright, right? So we're putting together, we want the fun and sun, but we want to combine the fun and sun with the historical aspect of the roots. And why this is very important. And by the way, I love the Hellenic Genealogy on Facebook because I think that's a really cool thing.
It is.
People learn a lot of things. A lot of the questions come back and forth because, look, I'm a first generation Greek American. My parents came here after the Greek Civil War, and there are many that are in my age group and our kids who are now coming up that we need to make that connection. We need to make, from an homogeneous perspective, what is the connection in the history in Greece? And then from an American touristic perspective, that Greece is not just Mykonos, Santorini, and Crete, Chalkidiki, and Zakynthos. Well, Zakynthos is mostly the Eglesi, but it's more than that. And I think it's very, very important that we show this connection. So our company in the United States, we're putting together a number of Birthright tour packages and ideas with our operation in the UK, which is more leisure. We're going to base it on that. And we also want to tie in things like I have read where Haiti at that time sent 7 or 8 sacks of coffee beans to help the War of Independence, right? We want to tie in.
Well, they sent 30 tons, but the ship disappeared.
Well,
nobody knows what happened to the ship. They also sent some fighters, by the way, but no one knows what happened to the ship.
It doesn't matter. The fact that they did is a great thing, right?
Yeah.
We want to tie in where at that time in the United States, where you had leaders of the United States figuring, what was going on in 1821, who spoke on behalf of the Hellenic Revolution.
Yeah, we'll go that into a second. Let me ask you a question. Obviously, the genealogy tourism is a segment that for some people is very important. Like, for example, when I go to Greece, I always visit my village, by the way, and which is in Laconia, Georgiousi. For those who are interested, I know you're also from Laconia. So within certain people, for example, the Irish, genealogy tourism was a big deal. They had like 130,000 visitors a year relating to people tracing their roots in Ireland. I know many African-American friends, many thousands, go to Africa to visit various nations and tribes based on the fact that they did genealogy makeups, let's say, and found out that their ancestors were from this country or for that country. The segment of genealogy tourism, which is also the focus of this particular event, I assume is very important to many people. And one thing that we have not seen is an emphasis on this particular aspect of tourism as it relates to the 200 years. It's more than going, as you said, to the islands. Obviously, many people are interested in visiting where their ancestors in particular came from. And we'll go in a second into the research activities with Georgia and Gregory, but also which ancestors did they have that actually fought in the revolution? Where do you get the records to find that out? Visiting the villages, in many cases linking up with relatives within the country. Peter, you, I, and many others who are here visit Greece all the time. I visit at least twice a year on a normal basis, but many people do not. And one of the things with Hellenic Genealogy Geek, for example, we find that out of the thousands, and Georgia, if you can jump on board on this one, you have 26,000 members in Hellenic Genealogy Geek. Tell us a little bit about those members, where they come from, and what are their interests as it relates also to going back to Greece in many cases.
Okay. Well, I did pull up some demographics to share with all of you. So first of all, you need to understand that, yes, we have 26,400 members as of today, but these are very active members. These aren't just people that joined a couple of years ago and never checked back in. So every month we're having about 350 to 400 new members join. The countries that they come from, in the last 28 days, well, first of all, let me say this. In the last 28 days, 75% of our members have been active. That means they have either posted, commented, or liked a certain post. That's a very high percentage. They come from, I have 14,000 from the US, 3,000 from Australia, New Zealand, about 2,000 from Canada, another 1,800 from Europe, 500 from Latin America, 300 from the African continent, 250 from the Middle East, another 100 from Asia. I can send Lou the details on those countries and that sort of thing. But we also have 3,900 members from Greece, which was surprising to me and Lou, I think. And these people participate in either helping out by answering questions, so they're very involved, or they're looking for ancestors that had migrated to the US. So that's where we stand on our membership. And the fact that they're all very engaged is a very interesting thing. And I think that I also will tell you that if I was to guess, and I don't have statistics on this, I would guess that about 70% of our members that are not living in Greece do not speak Greek, read Greek, or write Greek. So translators and that sort of thing, when they come to Greece, would be very helpful, going to the villages, helping facilitate their visit, that sort of thing, local museums, going to the archives. They'd be very interested in that. They're not just coming to see the historic ancient sites. They want to delve into their history and meet people.
Exactly. You know, Gregory, I hosted the event, as you know, about 5 years ago on the first National Hellenic American Genealogy Conference. And one thing that in a way surprised me, by the way, was first of all, we had a few hundred people. It was like unbelievable. They were flying in from all over the country. Right. They were flying in from Canada, etc. And one of the things that was surprising to me was that there were people there that were not first generation Hellenic Americans, second generation Hellenic Americans, or even third generation Hellenic Americans. And one thing that was surprising to me is the interest they had in their roots. In other words, if their great grandparent was from Greece, they were there and were very interested to find out where their people came from, how to do research on their people. And many of them because I follow, obviously, Hellenic Genealogy Geek. I don't know how many people were there when I first joined up. I think there was a couple of thousand.
You were in the
maybe.
beginning there, Lou.
I was in the beginning, but one thing that fascinated me was the amazing interest in people's roots. And in terms of what Peter indicated earlier, it's not only people with Hellenic roots, but in the revolution 200 years ago, many people from all over the world were interested, obviously, in the revolution from all over the world. It was something that was very important to them, whether they were in Germany, whether they were in France, whether they were in most of the countries in Europe, and certainly in the United States. So when we're talking about the 200th anniversary and Hellenic genealogy, we're also talking about other people's genealogies, American genealogy, German genealogies, and all the people who really don't know right now the effect and interest of their ancestors 200 years ago relating directly to the revolution. And also many people don't know the effects of the revolution in terms of even the United States. People who went and fought in the revolution, people who raised money for the revolution here in the United States through its various committees, they, at the end of the revolution, took back not only what happened, but also they were the leaders of the American abolitionist movement, and also the leaders of the American suffrage movement in the United States. These are the type of things that we have to get out there relating to the importance of the revolution, tourism, and also relating to getting back to your roots. Not only our roots, our Hellenic roots, but their roots within their cultures relating to the Hellenic Revolution. Let me ask a couple of questions of Gregory, and thank you, Gregory, for being with us from Patras. Tell us some of the research things that are available to people online and also on the ground.
All right. So first of all, there is great demand. Okay. Like my website we've been around 6 months. We've had 16,000 visitors and 80,000 views, which is really phenomenal. Now, as you said, the revolution is something that impacted everyone's life back then, at least in Greece. And so it's like the foundation stone of modern Greece, and therefore it is relevant for the family history of almost all Greek families today, right? And every family had its warrior, its captive, an orphan, a widow, an award. And guess what? All those records can be found in Greece, okay? We are talking about a real archival treasure here at the General State Archives, local and central, the Benaki Museum, the National Library. We do find records from the revolution all over. Lists of captives, people who ended up in the slave markets of Egypt and the Middle East. Distinctions, aristia, awarded to warriors, all sorts of things. Part of that is digitized, but there's definitely room for more work. And there's huge need for on-site research. From my experience, people they want two things. On the one hand, they want to visit the ancestral land and meet people, experience the culture, taste the food, all of that. But at the same time, they also want to do some research right there. They will visit the local church, the local archives, they will DNA test relatives, they will record stories. And because this is like the ultimate research experience. You're right there, you feel the vibes of the land, and yeah, so there's great interest. Now, there are distinctions are available online. So these were awards for warriors after the revolution. But the thing is, most of that is not indexed, so people cannot really name search. So what we did with Greek Ancestry now is we launched a project in May. It's called Tracing Freedom. and we actually locate such collections, and we digitize them and index them in order for people to be able to name search and find their family in the times of the revolution. And we started with captives list from Laconia. We found 600 records for captives from that area, predominantly women and children. But now we're expanding into more areas and more types of records.
Are these captive records from Ibrahim Pasha, or which captive records?
They cover many years during the revolution, but for Laconia, it's especially Ibrahim.
Ibrahim, okay.
And
Very
here,
good.
the records even tell you where the captive currently was, who owned the slave, when he or she was captured. They're really interesting.
Wow.
Are there records of Chios and all those that were sold in the slave markets when Chios was basically wiped out by the Ottomans?
We have found lists of refugees from Chios to the Cyclades and the Peloponnese, people from Sara, people from Crete. I'm telling you, we are talking about like a real treasure, and philhellenes included, lists of philhellenes and awards given to the philhellenes.
Gregory, can I ask, I'm sorry, I'm jumping in, Luke. Wait,
Yes.
this is fascinating, right? And you're 100% correct, because we talk to many Greek Americans and friends, and they want that connection, right? And
Right.
we know historically up to now, Greece, as far as records, is really, challenging, right? To be polite. And you can tell by all the people who are waiting 2 years to get their papers. So if I'm a second generation, we have second, third generation Greek, and they want exactly that. They want to trace their roots. They want to see, look, everybody has an idea where they're from, right? And they'll tell you Peloponnese, they'll tell you Sparti, Kalamata, or Patra, and they forget that there's, 1,000 villages in between and all that. So if I'm somebody and I know let's say one of my grandparents or somebody was from Sparti, how do I go about? How do I find that connection so that way they can go there?
Yeah, it depends where you are. Gloria, you can jump on board with this, but if let's say you're a Hellenic American and you want to find out that connection, you really have to know your village, not only what region they came from, but you have to know your village.
Right.
So one of the areas has to do with when people came over, for example, in the United States, the Ellis Island records. So Georgia, you want to jump in on that and just say how people can actually find out just from those records where their people came from? Because usually they'll indicate what village they came from or who their parent was and where their parent was located. So Georgia, you want to jump in on
Right. You have to have an open mind, because a lot of them, my relatives, a lot of them just put Sparta when in fact they were from villages. It's like me saying I come from Chicago. I am not in Chicago. I'm in one of the suburbs. So they can find this information on passenger ship records, on Social Security applications where they find their mother and their father, the mother's maiden name, the villages they came from. They can see it on the naturalization papers, where in most cases they'll show if the name was changed, what the original name was, and the villages. There's a lot of different resources. Sometimes the marriage records will have it. But you have to have an open mind and search. It won't always be as, you just have to know. Then you can go look at the election list records and compare. Was that family name even in that village? And if it was, there's a clue. And you can start looking for additional records.
Yeah. Let me get Stathi on. We'll get to that in 1 second. Let me get Stathi on board a second. And with Stathi, we had gone to a governor's conference in Washington about a year ago, and we were talking, and he said, Lou, what do you think we should be doing? I said, research Hellenic genealogy. So he looked at me like strangely. And then when he went into the internet, right when we were at the conference, he says, this is like unbelievable. He had invited me to go to Greece last year, and I couldn't, to speak at the fall conference of HEPA. But this topic obviously is of interest. And in particular, HEPA will do its Supreme Convention in Athens in 2021. And and the host, obviously the host chapters will host the event. And Stati, you want to tell us a little bit about the topic and our linkage and what HEPA is going to be doing next year in 2021?
Yes, because after the discussion that we had in Washington, immediately decided, I'm talking about the District 25 of HEPA, to implement an action entitled, Live the Story of Your Origin. So right now we have a project in our district with this title. And from this panel, I'd like to congratulate you and also Georgia. You do a very good job. And also Gregory and also Peter, because I have the opportunity to...
Also the Minister of Tourism, the Minister of Tourism.
The Minister of Tourism do very good job here in Greece and implement two big crises, and this is big crisis. The pandemic is big crisis, and we have to congratulate him. He do very good job. So I'm talking about the project of District 25, an action that is called for all citizens of Greek origin with the slogan, find your roots, visit your ancestral areas, discover your history. And as I told you, the idea comes in Washington after a brief discussion with Lucas. Every time that we have a meeting, we find out very good ideas. So I have in Greece immediately organized a team with experts and plan the action, as I told you, live the story of your region. And as I listened, we agree that today tracing the roots and origin is a global trend favored by development of the technology and internet, which makes it much easier. And we can say that the conditions are ideal because we have e-government, which allows access to information and electronic procedures, digitalization, etc. For this reason, we believe that Greece needs to create a mechanism. I'm talking about official mechanism for receiving requests and proceed this demand, official I'm talking, working on cooperation with network of public and private organizations. A mechanism that will give official information, will serve the requests of the expatriates and will help them to find information about their origin, but also about how they will go to their areas of origin. So it is necessary to implement an electronic registration project of all the files of the municipalities related to the origin and to be elements of the database. HEPA, Hellas, proposed the signing of cooperation agreement. This is the first step that we have done between the Ministry of Tourism, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I'm talking about the General Secretary of Greek Abroad, the Attica region, the municipality of Athens and Thessaloniki, with their respective citizen information centers, and HEPA, of course, whose main role of this contract will be the creation of bridges between Greece and the citizen with Greek origin and the promotion of the project. This is like to work like official network and going to be broader and broadened, so we need to involve all the organization, public and non-profit and private, with the knowledge and the experience on genealogy and the passion and qualification in this network. So this event brings more contributors in the same table, and this is very useful. In this network, as I told you, everyone will take a role corresponding to their project, to their object. But in any case, there has to be a national policy through which a national structure will be created. We estimate that with the launch of the facility, we will have over the 500,000 visitors each year, who will increase exponentially. Everyone who will use the program to visit Greece will entitle their relatives and friends. And in this way, the increase of the visitors is going to be bigger and bigger. We have discussed the program with the ministry, with Haris, and also the prefecture of Attica and municipality of the mayor of Thessaloniki, etc., and all they agreed to participate in this contract. However, it was delayed due to the pandemic. So we believe that Greece must show everywhere, and add something more on that, but Greece must show everywhere that it is the cradle of Hellenism, which is a platform of principles and values of the Western civilization at least. Greece has always preserved the monument of Hellenism with infrastructure, studies, festivals, conferences. It is required that Hellenism is added to every marketing promotion of tourism, for tourism. And the story, sun, sea, and landscapes will acquire a more essential meaning. Every visitor will know, wonder, and live in the cradle of Hellenism, which is ecumenical, timeless, and universal. After all, the Greek Revolution, as mentioned, my friend and brother Lou mentioned, the Greek Revolution 200 years ago brought freedom to Greece and united many world powers that believe in the principle of Hellenism. And I have for nearly 100 years promote these ancient Hellenic ideals. Hellenism today is contemporary, I believe, and necessary worldwide. The best time to start an action is when we started. And I think this is the best period to do it about genealogy. Thank you.
Stathi, it's one of the best periods, but let me indicate one thing. Greece in general, okay, and some of the people who have the archives have not been the greatest people to get the information from. As a matter of fact, there's all types of archives all over Greece, and no one is sharing them. Gregory, you want to jump in on some of the issues? And another thing, Stathi, when you're talking to a lot of these people, they have to link up with the experts who have done research in Greece and who have, in fact, by themselves, with their own money, digitized records that other people have not been able to get a hold of. It's a criminal and a shame. Gregory, jump in here and let's discuss some of the archives that are available in Greece and some of the problems that the excuse my expression, the BS artists are talking about when we try to assemble records in terms of genealogy and in terms of all types of records. Gregory.
I'll present this situation in a more positive way. So,
I prefer the way I do it, you know. So.
And this is also an answer to Peter before. So what we're trying to do now, and I'm not alone in this, we're trying to digitize as many records as possible. In the past few summers, Carol Kostakos and I, we have digitized records in Sparta, at the metropolis. The Bishop Evstathios, was very willing to open up his archives, and we digitized everything in there. Actually, in a couple of days, we are releasing more, like 50,000 more records from the metropolis. The
Spartans come through.
But by the way, Greg.
Of course they do. So that was with my heritage in the previous years. And now I do it on my own as Greek ancestry. So we are trying to digitize things, to get records out to people. Of course, there are obstacles, there are problems, but I think that we have entered a new era in this. And as the time,
Gregory, you are kind, and you're developing into a politician. Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
Wait, let me
go ahead.
I ask a few questions, Gregory. Can you tell for the audience when you went into, and I know I'm a Spartan too, right? But I have the benefit that a professor wrote a book because I'm from Skuro Varvitsa, and so we have our ancestry, right? We come from the Varvitsiotis, Anagnostopoulei, Kapetanei. So we have statues and so forth. So it's real easy for me to take the kids up. Here's a statue. But I want the readers to understand, because I went to the Pothylaikion, and people have to understand, and Lou, you know, in Greece and in our parts, all the town halls moved around. The papers moved around. My mother's Chorio, which was, the Turkish name was Tarapsa, then became Vasilaki, was first, the papers were in Levetsova, which is now Krokes, then went to Xerokabi, then went to
Yeah.
Sparta, and then now it's in Scala, right? So,
Right.
probably, so for those who don't understand what I just said, and not Lou who's bashing, why don't you tell us what shape?
Not, wait a second, not
Yeah, you're
bashing.
bashing them. Lou, stop.
No,
Can you
no,
tell us, Gregory? Can you
Lou-
tell us the shape? The
Lou,
shape.
Lou, hold on a second. Lou is speaking to Stathi, who's doing something very serious, and
I think
Stathi
that's
has to
also
link,
what he's doing.
and Stathi has to link up with genealogists to tell them the problems. So Stathi can work on getting these problems resolved. It's true. Our villages, listen, my village, I know exactly who fought in the revolution. By name, by title, everything around it. But that's different for most areas. Anyway, your question was addressed to Gregory. Gregory, go ahead.
Just tell us, I want the readers to understand what he went and looked through. So when we talk about people saying, why didn't Greek digitize? Tell them what you found.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. big question. So we went to Sparta with Carol. It was a summer. It was hot. And we went downstairs at the basement of the metropolis, and we saw tons of records by the wood for fire and petrol for heating. So we saw those records. We found 100,000 pages of marriage licenses for the entire metropolis from 1835 to 1935, 100,000 pages. We digitized them all, okay? Then last year, the bishop ordered all the priests to bring their village books to the metropolis, and Carol digitized them all again.
Wait, how? So tell me, when you say village books, right? Explain to people.
Yes.
These were books handwritten in people's,
Right. These are books stored at the local priest houses somewhere hidden in a drawer, and they are births, marriages, and deaths. They're very, very important. And some, like Hierarchy, My Village, or Mistras, the books go back to the 1860s. Like, imagine a death in 1860 would take you back to the late 1700s.
Right. And
Right.
what are the just
Gregory, what was the condition?
Well,
No.
listen. So Lou has to organize another conference like this one, and we will discuss about preservation of records, because the condition is terrible and we really have to do something. Next summer, I have told Carol I'm going to Sparta. I will buy boxes and archival paper and everything, and we'll spend a month or two there trying to preserve the collections.
Gregory, let me know, I'll help you. But Lou, I want to, in the United States, do
Yes.
you know who has the original book of the first papadas who came here in the 1800s when they started to first get organized?
All right, so I'm an expert.
Well,
on this.
don't forget the papadas came sort of later. I mean, the original immigrants came in the 1840s. Well, not the original, but they came in the 1840s, and they were from
1800s. The late 1800s. There's a book.
No. The original ones came in like the 1840s, and they were basically merchants. They were in New York. They were obviously in New Orleans. They were in Charleston, South Carolina, and a lot of them came from families that were throughout Europe, and in particular, they related to the cotton trade. And so those records exist. For example, there are records in New Orleans relating to the church, who founded it, etc. There are church records, let's say in New York, relating to the Archdiocese of
The
New York.
original book, Lou, let me interrupt you. I have the original book.
Well, listen, Peter,
I'm
going to jump you. I'm going to jump you and grab it from you.
You know what? I got to be honest with you.
Give it to me, man.
I showed it to the previous Archbishop because Oreo. And that was it. So I took it back.
Well, where is it now, Peter?
To have a home somewhere. I don't want it.
Peter, where is it? I want it. Where is it?
Let me jump on this.
No, hold it. Don't jump on this. Because I'm in New York. Anyway, getting back to the scenario, Peter, there are many records relating to those immigrants. There are many books written about the period. And Georgia, if you can jump on board right now in terms of some of the American records, in particular, again, let's go back to the Ellis Island records. We talk about them a lot, but they become very, very important. you want to jump on board with regards to some of those records?
Well, those have all been digitized, and it's really interesting because they will not only say in many cases where they came from, who was their oldest relative that was left in Greece, or their nearest relative that was left in Greece, who were they coming to stay with in the US? They're coming to stay with this cousin at this address, blah, blah, blah. So all of that is very interesting, and you can see that they came in groups with other people from their villages. And it's actually now very easy to trace if you can access those records, and they're available just about everywhere. Also, like I said, the Social Security applications give you a lot of information, and they are handwritten by the person in most cases that actually applied. And so for my grandmothers, it'll have an X, and it'll have the daughter's name down underneath to help. You know, you have scribbled handwriting from my grandfathers on there. It's very interesting.
Plus,
And
there's military records, there's
Yes.
cemetery records, there's all types of records that quite frankly exist for someone to do some research. Can I have
There are a lot of records. Look, there are a lot of records on the small communes. This is small communes right now. The Mukrakoria right now is a part of the big municipalities, and they have plenty of information. And as I told you, there are special centers right now in Greece we call KEP. And these centers right now and the people that work on that are responsible to find out with information and to serve any request that comes from any citizen. So it's what we talked with the prefecture of the Attica, your Patoulis. And Patoulis told us that it's right away it can establish a special kept center for information just for genealogy, and it requests something, and the officer that works in the small village or the municipality of Sparta, who is in municipality of Sparta, belongs to the commune of I don't know, or
yes, Sparta is easy because the Spartans are into records. So.
The municipality of Komotini, which belongs to right now the small business Fanari, and it's possible the employer that works right now in municipality to communicate the employer in the small community Fanari and to open all this record to find any information. For that reason, I told you this is something that it can happen because there is right now the mechanism. The problem is that there is not national policy, and the good thing is that Mr. Theoharis, the minister, from when we introduce him, the project say right away we need that, and I like to involve in it. And also the other part of the officials that we have met until now said, okay, it's good time to establish a national policy. And as I told you, we have the tools. And being in this panel, I found out that we have also the knowledge, like the Gregory have very good knowledge.
No, we got a lot of knowledge. Believe me, we have a lot of knowledge as to what
so we have everything. Equipment.
We have it all. What we need is the ability of somebody like yourself, let's say, to coordinate this thing, because I like to on occasion throw bombs out there. You know what I'm saying? So one of the bombs that I threw out there is, quite frankly, that sometimes getting records out of some people becomes problematic. Some people don't want to share their records, but with you and other people and good people like like the minister, we will get it done. Minister Theoharis, can we? You've seen here.
Lou,
Yeah.
I was talking to him. We have another meeting right now about some other issues, so he had to jump off, and he gives us a
Okay. All right, so we will continue. We will continue with. Here's what I want from the ministry, Stathi, when you're talking to Theohari, okay? They have to have a plan of what they're going to do in 2021. In other words, if somebody went out and said, "Okay, I'm thinking of going to Greece. It's the 200th anniversary. What events are being planned? What events are being planned in Sparta? What events are being planned in Attica? What events are being planned in Epirus?" In other words, there has to be a centralized area that somebody can can easily go into a computer and find out exactly what events are taking place. Okay, so Stathi, you have to work on this, and also Peter, mention this to the minister.
Lou, that is already, I can share with you, because I sit in on a number of meetings.
Okay.
That all of that will happen. It's in the works, right? So this panel has two issues here, right? First, yes, well, of course, the COVID trumps everything, right? Because we don't know if there's a second.
Yeah, but COVID will be over at some point. COVID will be over.
That's what we're saying. But so part one.
If it's not, what are we going to do?
Right. But part one is that there are a lot of events in all over Greece, because remember, in the 200 years, there's many parts of Greece that came in at 1821, and some who came in at the end of World War II to know where Greece is as Greece is today. So there are that, and that will happen. What I think is fascinating on this panel, right, is the fact that, and someone said earlier, as the second and third generation, and all those people, they want to know where their roots came from, right? And the records in Greece are a shambles. I'm sorry. They're written on books, tied with pieces of paper. Some have been lost. You have to also remember, especially since, two of us are Laconas, my father's village was 1,100 meters up in the mountains. They came down whenever they wanted to come down to declare their kids. All right. So the records aren't, even if you have records, not very accurate to begin with, especially in those times, right? So I think the marriage here, and where AHEPA is playing, and Stati, I'm very impressed with what AHEPA in Greece is doing. And you shouldn't smoke; it's bad for your health. But I'm very impressed. I'm very impressed.
He's in Greece.
Doesn't matter. I'm very impressed.
They're not affected in Greece.
Yeah, okay. I'm very impressed with the undertaking of the Order of AHEPA on this project, because it is correct. Look, the government talks a good game but cannot deliver much, and especially now where it's going to have a severe economic crisis on its hand, because 25% of the GDP comes from tourism and it didn't materialize, right? And given all the other global problems and the global recession that we're going to be in. But I think it's a great project. Tatouche is a great guy, and he's a man of his word. So on the Peripheriarchis is supporting this. That's a fantastic thing. And the bishops. But I think here's the golden opportunity, Lou, between AHEPA and Georgia and Gregory. There has to be some electronic site. Maybe AHEPA can be behind this. So if I'm a second or third generation, just what you said, Georgia, where do I go find that? And Gregory, where do I go? And look, I did the research, but other people might not. How do I go? And all I know is, and this is what most people know, right? Papu and Yaya, this was their name, and they came from there. Now, it is true, the Archdiocese records, if they let you into them, are pretty accurate, because the old papadas usually wrote the village you came from in the records. So you can actually narrow it down. I can tell you, I belong to St. Constance Helen Cathedral in Brooklyn. It's over 100 years old. We have the records from day one. We have the first christening, the first wedding, and you could see those names. But it'd be cool, Georgia and Gregory, if there's a how-to, look at this, and then Gregory from the Greek side, look at that. And I don't know, Gregory, if you know the book Matheos wrote, the professor, and they have a lot of the history, especially in our parts, with a lot of names, and people don't know that after the war you'd go up and get you got payment that you fought and all sorts. So I think this is great. And from our perspective from tourism, I will tell you this: when we get people to go to Greece, they always ask what happened where I'm going. If they're Greek Americans, right, or Americans of Hellenic descent, they want to know. I can't tell you how. We send a lot of people to Costa Navarino, right, in the Kalamata area, but they're Spartans, right? But that's like kind of the really nicest on the. And they take the drive and go over to Laconia. They go over there. There are people who are Acadians and they want to go see Tripolitsia, right?
Yes.
Arbenisi. There's all these places, and all this gets duplicated up north. Greece lacks the sophistication. We don't have. If you go to the Israeli Birthright program, which is hundreds of thousands of young Jews who go back to Israel, which is amazing. We've tried to do that in time in Greece. It has failed. So I think my hat goes off, because Georgia and Gregory and Ahepa, if you guys can put something, if we can all put something together and say, here's how to start. Here, because look, we all don't have a Lou Katzos who can do it. I'm telling you, I wish I was in Lou's family, because I'm sure he has his whole tree already done and he can give it out.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, this may sound funny. This may sound funny to everybody, but I went back. I went back to Greece. I wasn't interested originally in any genealogy or anything, but years ago I was doing some research on a particular artist that I have, and one of the things that I noticed on the Ellis Island records, that when she was traveling into Europe, how the ship had stopped in Trieste and in Patra. And then I looked at the passengers and they were all Greek. So then I said to myself, let me go into the records and find my grandfather who came into the United States early. I went into the records of Ellis Island. I found like 13 Katsoses in the records. I started to analyze them. I saw an Elias, because I'm named after my grandfather Elias. I looked at the records and it was obvious this wasn't my grandfather. In other words, someone had come, one of the Elias Katsoses had come in 1907. It wasn't my grandfather because they said that he had his twin brother with him. My grandfather did not have a twin brother. I started then to search the records. I said, where's my grandfather? And finally, I found my grandfather under a different spelling, C-A-T-Z-O-S, C-O-T-Z-O-S. And then I became interested in this. I researched then every Katsos that was on that list and found out everything about them. When I went to Greece on what I called some of my tribal visits, I went into the village where my people came from originally, because I'm from Laconia, but our village is Nihori or Neohori, which is above Dirachi. And I went into the village, I went into the cemetery, Katsos, Sparagi. I said to the villagers, where are the records? They said in Leondari. I jumped into the car, went down to Leondari. I searched the Mitrun Arenon records, Katsos. I wrote them down, etc. Then started to do an analysis. And because of the way we're named, in other words, the first son is named after the father's father, etc., I was able to put a genealogy chart together. Once I put that genealogy chart together, because it was huge, quite frankly, I couldn't link the people. I couldn't link how they were related going way back, until finally I saw some records from the revolution. And I found out the brothers who were fighting in the revolution, who were under a kefalas at the time. And once I made that link, I was able to link the whole family together. Hundreds and hundreds of people I was able to link just by that one record, of the brothers. Because once I found that out, I was able to link everybody. So these records exist. Going back into what we were talking about, and you mentioned the Jewish people. There are also records, of course, of Jewish Hellenes. There are records of Jewish Hellenes. For example, our good friend Marcia Ikonopoulos, who's here in New York, in fact, has a lot of those records. So there could be research also of the Hellenes of the Jewish faith. Don't forget, the Hellenes of the Jewish faith were there from the 15th century, and in Thessaloniki, for example.
Also, we have from 15th century.
Of course, but also there were indigenous Jewish people from before the 15th century, okay, who have been here, who were in Greece for thousands of years, actually. So, for example, the Hellenes in Yanina, the Hellenic Jews in Yanina are people that were there from before. Doesn't relate to what took place in the 15th century when they came over from Spain. So these records do exist. Another group of records that I'm just that I was informed of when I posted this particular event is someone posted and said about the orphan adoptions that took place in the 1950s and 1960s, and the problems that people are having due to some of these adoptions that were illegal, and all these people trying to find their relatives. Can we talk about that a little bit? Because to a certain degree, I was chastised about those records and about HEPA's involvement actually in that particular scenario. So, and by the way, for those, George Horiatis, by the way, the Supreme President of AHEPA, sends his regards on this event, our first event relating to the 200th year anniversary and all those events around the 200th year anniversary. Does anyone want to address the orphan issues?
Yeah.
Yes, but first, Peter, what you were talking about, we do have all that information to share. We probably don't have it organized quite correctly so that people can put their finger on it right away. And that's something we should work on because it is very important. As far as the orphans go, we have a lot of members that talk about that were orphans and are now trying to locate their birth parents. They have been successful in a lot of cases, and we have the etrc project that was put together by an orphan, and it slipped my mind, Gregory, but what is the name of the Greek professor that has been working on this all along?
Professor Gonda Van Schijn.
Yes,
Right.
thank you. And she's been a great resource on this.
No, she's unbelievable, and she's written a book called Adoption, Memory, and the
Right.
Cold War, and she's the Korais chair of at King's College in London, and you know, I've had contact with her, and some of the information is very interesting. I wanted to mention that because people say, well, you know, sometimes, you know, people want to get away from the past and all the rest of that, but they found the wrong person, because I absolutely do not want to get away from the past.
Yeah.
I want the past to come forward, quite frankly. Yeah, Gregory, you were going to say something about this?
Yeah, I was going to say about Honda and about the Ευτυχία project. Actually, I'm going to meet the founder of the Ευτυχία project, Linda. They are trying to collect DNA kits in order to get samples from people and help others find their birth families. And they're looking for donors for DNA kits. I'm going to meet her soon. Yeah, there's great interest in that. And I personally get dozens of emails every week from people who are orphans and are trying to find something. And it's hard. It's really hard. And there's another aspect to the problem, is that the records of the 20th century in Greece are actually harder to access than those of the 19th century. Because they are put under some sort of privacy rules and stuff, which don't make sense all the time. And even Stathis mentioned the KEPs before, and yes, they can be helpful, but they're not accessible to a Greek American trying to get information from the States. It's not easy. So there has to be more work and effort into this.
Stathi and Peter, in terms of your discussions with the various ministers, one of the things that I'd like you guys to also focus on with them is for them to have some branding related to what we're talking about in terms of Hellenic genealogy, getting back to your roots, and all the things that we've talked about. Have you had any of those type of discussions, and what are your thoughts around that for them to push those scenarios?
Listen, no, we've discussed about actually it came up with the Minister of the Interior. The discussion came up because there is a whole workup to look and see how those who are entitled to Greek citizenship can make the process easier, right? After I personally gave them my story, and the minister called up the general secretary, and right on the speakerphone, the general secretary said, well, it might take 1.5 to 2 years to get your papers.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So that's how the conversation came with people going back, right? Because if we lose this generation, the second and third, the first, second, and third, we lose them forever, right? Because then they're cut. That's it. So, but one has to understand is that, you know, for the first time, Greece has somebody who's digital media, right? For the first time, Greece has some serious campaigns. And the government will be, for a number of years, still be there for the next couple of years. The priority right now, I got to be honest with you, Lou, is, it's on the pecking order. It's not going to be a high priority. The most important priority right now is to exactly what the minister is doing, is to open up gateways to all markets. So in other words, come spring, where are we going to be with the very important Chinese market? Where are we going to be important with the American market, which is the most affluent market that goes to Greece? Where are we going to be in the Middle East? And all the investments. So I'll be more than happy to look. To me, I think this is hand in hand. It should not be a separate campaign. It should be included in the campaign. So when
listen, Peter, every year, many times a year, people come from, various departments, various ministries into the United States. They meet with various Hellenic American organizations. They tell them, listen, you're Greek, this and that. You've got to invest in Greece. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to do this. You got to do that. Then somebody tries to apply, as you said, for Hellenic citizenship, and all of a sudden, you can't get it. I was born in Greece, and when I made my application for Hellenic citizenship, they were doing all types of routine 11s, quite frankly, to delay the process. Until finally, I was getting upset, and I decided, you know what? Forget about it. I relaxed. I'll take my time. They're not going to beat me on this. So I took my time, and it took, I don't know what it took, originally about a year or so. My son is going through the process now, and it's, and again, problematic. So when they talk about coming to the United States, asking for help, asking for investments, and all this other type of stuff, and they are not even interested in the diaspora, quite frankly, you can't do anything but get annoyed at that. I haven't given up. And by the way, as you know, you and I discussed this. As you know, I am going to have, and this is going to be part of a HEPA Stati. We're going to do what I call the dual citizenship initiative, to try to get whoever wants in the diaspora and whoever has the ability as a birthright by Hellenic law to get their citizenship if they want it, and to do it in an efficient basis. Stati.
Yes, that is very good idea, and you have to introduce to the government too, to get right away the Greek citizenship. Everyone that wants to do it. But I think the period that we are right now is the best. The pandemic pushed any digitization, and that is good. So the government decided to spend and to grant a lot of this kind of projects and accept these ideas. So we are in very good period right now to introduce this kind of subject. Unfortunately, the genealogy a few years ago, even now, is something strange for the Greeks, for Greece. Even for me.
Stati, you want to know something funny? I know who my grandfather was.
All my family lives in the United States. My family.
I know who my grandfather was, who my great-grandfather was, who my great-great-grandfather was, who my great-great-great-great-grandfather was. When I go many times and I speak to Hellenic people and I ask them, who was your great-grandfather, they can't tell me. And in many cases, because many people left the countryside and went into major cities like Athens, you tell them, where are your people from? Because in the old days, we used to meet somebody and you used to say to them as a Hellenic person, where are you from? And they used to tell you their village and this and that. Today, you ask people, let's say from Athens or some major cities, young people, where are your people from? Because they say, I'm from Athens. Okay, where are your people from? They can't tell you. Many people in Hellas can't tell you where their people are from. They can't tell you where their people.
Stati, I can tell you this: the Theodorikakos, the minister, is working on this project. But in all fairness to the Greek side, you can go to camp and you can find the papers, but the papers have been moved so many times. And let's be honest, you're asking a country to recognize you as one of its citizens. Now, it's in Greece's best interest to do it for us. But, in the United States, the problem and why this is critical today is 75% of the marriages in the United States between Greeks or with non-Greeks, okay? 75% are mixed. And now it gets very complex. you said about the 50s and the 60s, many of them left, and vevilosane. So Greece has no idea if these people are alive or they're dead, if they're married, who their kids are. And without digitizing, matter of fact, we should applaud the Greek government because this is the first year you could use a credit card on their website to pay for services. So in 2020, we should do this. So Stathi, I'm very impressed on all the initiatives. And I think this here, to tie all this in together, I think, Lou, you're right. We need to keep pushing. And I have a commitment from the minister to get this done. We actually met a few times, and with the HEPA behind it, it might go faster, but the pandemic has screwed everything up. So to thread the needle on all this is this is the 200th anniversary. People really want to know where they came from. It's going to be a heightened sense because everybody wants to be proud on what their papudes and yayades did in 1821, or did they not? You know, I have to tell you, it's shocking. You'll see, Lou, there's some people didn't realize when they became part of Greece. Or, you know, I'm sorry, when did Rhodes become part of Greece?
Right.
How long was it under the Italians?
Yeah, of course.
Why, you know, we took Tripoli, the Turks took it back, we took it back. So I think this is a great conversation. But Stati, the Theodoracopoulos, he's into all this. You know, so if you reach out to him,
well, Peter, like I said, we're going to have another Zoom webinar in late September relating to the dual citizenship initiative, and certainly we're going to connect. I'm going to ask some of those ministers actually to be on so we can have a more serious discussion. We're going to start to wrap this part of our webinar. I think this topic is fascinating. I think we'll do it also, later in the year, maybe early next year, as we're going into the 200th anniversary. So if we can, one by one, let's just wrap it up. Peter, if you can, just give us your thoughts, comments, etc., on the topic.
Look, I have to tell you, I learned a lot today. Georgia and Gregory, congratulations. It's amazing. And I think a HEPA should help put all this together, get it out to the Omogenia. Stathi, I'm ecstatic that the Order of a HEPA is so vibrant and alive in Greece and doing those projects. Everyone that you have mentioned, the Birthright is a friend of mine, and the Greek government. And I think, folks, right now, Greece is going through its toughest time. We succeeded in COVID, but unfortunately, we have a bad neighbor. We have a bad neighbor that last week we came within 5 minutes of being in a war. So Greece will survive because the world respects on who we are. And in 2021, we will have 7 daily flights from the United States, nonstop. So you're talking over 2,000.
That's impressive.
Yes. So we will have 7 flights nonstop going into Greece. We have so many projects going on in Greece as far as the development of Greece. But what is important, and what I always tell Greece, is I'm not interested in the real cheap development. I'm not a fan of TUI and some of those guys, and I'm sorry I said it out loud, but and developments that bring you the guests by plane, bring you the food by plane, and leave no money for Greece. So the bottom line, I'm proud I'm going to happen. I'm proud of this call. I'm proud of what we're doing. And I think, Mr. Governor Lou, congratulations for doing this. And I think this is so critical to Greece's future. Forget about tourism. Could you imagine there's 11 million Greeks outside of Greece, right? And then put in the first and second generation. And if we can get those to all take Greek citizenship, they will have an affinity and a tie to Greece, which doesn't exist today. So thank you for having me on the panel. And any which way I can help, you have my commitment. Thank you.
Well, Peter, don't worry. We're gonna tap into you. Let me ask you another question. Can you zoom out on the person behind you? I want to see if that's Kapitan Zervas.
No, that's Kapitan Zacharias.
Well, zoom out so I can see the face. I can't see the face.
I don't know how to do that.
Okay, because I just see I don't see the face. I just see the body. So I thought maybe it was
first. For those who don't know, Kapitan Zacharias was the first archistratigos of the Peloponnese. He died before the War of Independence. Yes, from my father's village, Varvitsa. And if you go in the book of
Of Arvitsotis.
Right. So he was of Arvitsotis. He died before that. He taught. He was a buddy of Kolokotroni, and then
No, he was a buddy of his father, by the way, Kostis Kolokotronis. Who many people don't talk about Kostis, but Kostis was an extremely famous cleft leader, and as a matter of fact, he was responsible for putting down the Orlov rebellion aftermaths with the Albano-Turki, and where you had 5,000 heads outside of Tripoli when that all ended. In aftermaths with the Albano-Turki, and where you had 5,000 heads. Oh, no, we're getting reverberation.
That's
so, Stathi, please close it up on your end. Stathi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, please wrap it up on your end.
Excuse me. I put it in the YouTube too.
Oh, that's why. Okay. Do you want to give us your final comments, Stathi, on the event?
Yes, this event is very useful, and thank you, Lou, for this opportunity. For me, it was a privilege to participate in this panel, especially with Georgia. Congratulations, Georgia, again.
Thank you. It was nice to meet you.
Good, clever idea, and you did very good. And also, Gregory, you are very young, and I like to communicate with you and with Georgia, but Gregory, because lives in Greece.
Yeah, you didn't say I was young. That's a problem. Okay.
I'm talking about Gregory right now. Yeah. the youth comes from not from the body. Yeah. It's what we do. And Gregory, because I like to involve you in our what we do in HEPA, and also with Peter, because Peter, as he told us, makes a lot of connections, especially with ministers, and you have to go together, because the only one minister that we have we didn't see until now is the Minister of Esoterikon, very office. So we have to all together, because for me, the main thing is to accept the government officially, like the genealogy is the national policy. This is the most important thing, to accept that we need genealogy. So we decided at the political level is genealogy is a national policy. And if they accept the government this one, everything comes after that. So thank you very much for everyone to participate in this panel. Thank you, Lou.
Thank you, Stathi. In terms of Gregory, you know, I first met Gregory a few years ago, obviously, when he was a student in college, a history student.
I was 19.
And when I hosted the first Hellenic American Genealogy Conference, I actually had Gregory Zoom in. No, it wasn't Zoom at that point. At that point, it was, I guess, Skype. I had Gregory Skype in to into the first national Hellenic American Genealogy Conference, and Gregory had done the research for Gates in terms of his roots program when they were analyzing the roots of Stephanopoulos and some other Hellenic Americans, and one of the people that Gregory had referred to was Father Stephanopoulos, who was actually at the conference. So I gave Gregory, I enjoyed it actually. I gave Gregory a shock when he was discussing what his research, and when I brought Father Stephanopoulos right on the screen to talk to him. Gregory, give us your some of your final words on this event.
Thank you. So yeah, thank you very much for this. It was a very interesting panel, many different aspects. And I think we all understood the parts we need to play to make Hellenic Genealogy Tourism work and be effective.
Thank you, Gregory. Georgia, some final words, thoughts?
I am just so happy that we're finally talking about this. Lou and I spoke about this around 6 or 7 years ago, but we weren't big enough to really feel like we could have an impact. People weren't interested. It would be great if we could move this forward.
Thank you, Georgia. And quite frankly, I remember how we started that particular event, the First National Hellenic American Genealogy Conference. I think what I did is I posted on Facebook, actually, at Hellenic Genealogy Geek, and I said, "Why don't we have an event?" Everybody said, "Yeah, why don't we have an event?" And it was an all-day event. It was very well attended, as we said. We had music, obviously. We had a band during that particular thing. We had all types of professors. We had Professor Moskos. We had George Tselos, who's from Ellis Island. He's the chief archivist of Ellis Island. And also we had DNA experts and all the rest of that. So I'm very glad we were able to discuss this very important topic. And one of the first events by EMCA in working also with a HEPA and others in the American Hellenic Revolution of 1821 Bicentennial Committee. We decided, obviously, to have an American committee because there's a lot of aspects that relate to the revolution that came from the diaspora. Don't forget, from the diaspora, we had many people. We had the Filiki Eteria from the diaspora. We had, the first. We even had, to be honest with you, even Kolokotronis was from the diaspora. He was in the Ionian Islands, and he only came back, quite frankly, from the revolution. Certainly, a lot of the intellectual aspects of the revolution did, in fact, come from the diaspora, and I think the diaspora is a very important aspect of this particular 200 years of the anniversary of the Hellenic Revolution. I thank obviously HEPA. I am the chair of HEPA's National Hellenic Cultural Commission, as well as the governor, the Empire Governor State of HEPA. So I thank HEPA and certainly George Choriatis, the Supreme President of HEPA, and all the people in the National HEPA. I thank Hellenic Genealogy Geek for being with us. It's always a pleasure to do an event together. And certainly I thank Gregory with his new organization now. We absolutely wish you luck. Our next event, going back to Peter, is in a couple of weeks. We decided to have a special event relating to Hagia Sophia. We're going to discuss its history, the cultural aspects, and also the geopolitics involved with what's happening around the the reconversion of Hagia Sophia as a mosque. At the end of August, we're going to have an event on the 2500th anniversary of the Battle of Thermopylae and the Battle of Salamis. We will have the mayor of Sparta, who will be one of the panelists. And we will have three professors of classics, one from London, one from Cornell University, and one from the Graduate Center at City University of New York. As I indicated, at the end of September, we will have an event relating to our initiative, which is both EMCA's initiative and HEPA's initiative in terms of dual citizenship. And we will connect, obviously, with Stathi and Peter to try to get the appropriate people, ministers, et cetera, involved in that particular discussion. Because it's very important, in particular, as we head towards the 200th anniversary. Certainly, the Hellenic Republic right now can use a lot of the strength and power of the Hellenic diaspora. As Peter indicated, there are millions of Hellenic people of various degrees in terms of their linkage to the country, who can be very important and influential in what's happening in the geopolitics of the East Mediterranean. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you to the panelists. You were absolutely spectacular. You added a lot of brevity in terms of the discussion on Hellenic genealogy and Hellenic genealogy tourism. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.